Welcome to another episode of the Giants Huddle Podcast. John Schmelk with you. Today's guest from The Athletic, the one and only Dane Brugler. Dane, it's good seeing you, man.
Yeah, you too. It's I didn't see you last year at this time because we didn't have a combine, so it's great to be back here in Indianapolis.
Yeah, nobody saw anybody. And by the way, you can find the Giants Huddle Podcast on the Giants mobile app, your favorite podcast platforms at thegiants.com/podcast. Make sure you check it out along with our new podcast, Draft Season. It's a draft podcast, not Giant-specific, with Tony Pauline and Eric Crocker and myself. Make sure you guys go check that out. And, of course, all our draft content this year is brought to you by AWS, proud partner of the New York Football Giants. All right, Dane, you've been on the ground here since Monday. Let's start here. What are some of the things that you're kind of hearing when we all have to stay out at the bars late and pay for it in the morning when we're recording this? That's kind of informed your impressions of some of these players before you arrived in Indianapolis.
I think I'm a little surprised at the lack of consensus with a lot of these players. There's more so than most years. I think every year there's going to be wild opinions about each one of these guys, but this year especially, you get differing opinions on how these corners should be ranked, how these wide receivers should be ranked. Really go by position, and just wildly different opinions on each one of these guys, how the pass rushers should be ranked. So really, you're looking at, I think, center and safety, the only two positions where there's a clear-cut top guy.
You don't even think Hutchinson's a clear-cut top guy?
No, some teams prefer some of the other pass rushers. Now, it's not like a half the league, but
I get it.
One or two have told me that they like him, but they prefer maybe the upside of another player.
A bendy guy instead of a power guy.
Right. And Hutchinson's not a long player. Tomorrow he works out, and his day's going to start a little rough because his arm length's not going to be as long as people think.
What do you think it's going to come in at?
Under 33 inches, which is pretty short. So. We'll see tomorrow officially what it is, but I think his day is going to get a lot better really quickly because he's going to blow up with the agility drills and how he looks on the field. And if he comes anywhere close to his testing numbers, what he's been doing, goodness gracious, he's going to do well for himself.
Well, I know on Feldman's Freak List, they said he had a better three cone than Kwity Paye from last year, which at like 270 pounds is kind of ridiculous. Think about it.
The short shuttle, the 40, we had the wide receivers and quarterbacks and tight ends work out last night, and a few pretty good performances, but the pass rush is what I'm excited for because there's a lot of them this year. It's by far the strongest position this year, and I think the combine will help maybe figure out where each one of these guys belong in the pecking order.
Yeah, and a lot of it's styles too, right? What are you looking for from the edge guy? What do you want a powerful 270-pound guy? Do you want a quicker 250-pound guy that's going to stand up more? So this is probably why the rankings, especially at that spot, are so disparate, right? Because different teams are looking for different qualities.
Same thing at receiver, where do you want an inside guy? Do you want an outside guy? You want someone that can play all over the formation? Do you want a possession target? Do you want more of the big play guy, a deep threat? So really, we could go position by position and kind of discuss how each team's looking for something a little different. A guy like Tyler Linderbaum, you could make the argument he is a top 10 player in this class. He could fall to the mid-20s. He could fall to the 30s.
He is a team, I think, if we want to use him so he's that good of a player, we have to run an outside zone scheme.
Well, that's it. He's a center only. He's not going to play guard. He's got short arms.
31-something, right, this morning?
Right. And that's just, that's not a surprise because that's what the tape says. That's how he plays. He's scheme-specific. He is a zone center. And so when you look at all 32 teams and you cross off all the teams that have center, cross off all the teams that don't run zone, cross off all the teams that are, not willing to draft a center in the first round, and you're left with like 4 teams. So, it's really fascinating with a guy like Tyler Linderbaum, who's the best player at his position, but has such a wide variance of where he could end up on draft day.
All right, I'll get to the on-field stuff in a little bit from last night because you were there and you were up close and personal with these guys. But we're talking about how these guys are ranking up. In your opinion, do your evaluation, then you can kind of tell me what you're hearing from the league too, because there might be different answers. Who are the true blue chip, any draft year, this guy would be a top 5, top 7 player in this year's draft class? How many of those guys even are there?
Do we have any? I don't know that we have any, to be honest with you. Let's just take last year's draft class, for example. Aiden Hutchinson's probably not a top 10 pick last year.
It's funny, Dane. We had this conversation yesterday. You brought
Yeah.
it up. I went through the 9 top non-quarterbacks from last year, right?
Okay.
You have the 3 wide receivers,
Yep.
Kyle Pitts, the 2 corners, the 2 offensive linemen, and Michael Parsons,
Okay.
right?
Yep.
Those are the 9 I got to.
Yeah.
If you think I'm missing somebody, okay.
No, yeah.
And I said those, if you combine last year's class with this year's class, that's probably 9 of the first 12 or 13 picks.
Yeah, no question. And I don't think that I love Ike Ekwonu. Love him. He's my number 2 player in this class behind Hutchinson. I don't think that he doesn't go above Slater, doesn't go above Sewell last year. So, it's fascinating to look at it that way.
Same for the corners, by the way. I don't think they go above J.C. Horn or Patrick Surtain.
I don't think so either. And I really like these corners. But, yeah, I agree. Last year it was a top-heavy group. No one as a pass catcher comes even close to Jamar Chase or Kyle Pitts that we had last year. And I love Garrett Wilson. Traylon Burks is a stud, but yeah, they don't come close to those guys last year. It's a really interesting draft class when you compare it to past groups like that, and it's just, I know Giants fans don't want to hear it, but relatively speaking, it's not the best year to be picking top 10.
And no, that's literally the conversation we've been having all week. So yeah, I'm with you. All right, so let's talk. We'll get back to the bigger picture in a second. Last night. First of all, have you actually seen the final official times? Because there was some variance.
A little bit, yeah.
So now that you've seen what the actual numbers are, what are some of the things that jumped out at you last night?
Well, first the variance, just how wildly different they were. We thought we might have had a record there from Tyquan Thornton out of Baylor. He dropped from 4.21 to 4.28. So still, it's. I don't think I've ever said I was disappointed by a 4.28, but we thought it might be even better than that.
How about Olave? He goes from a 4.26. He doesn't even
4.39.
run his second time. Now 4.39 is a great time. Right?
Exactly.
So
Right.
But maybe he runs his second go if he's at 4.39.
Wasn't even the fastest Ohio State receiver. Yeah. So that's too bad. But I still think a lot of these guys ran fast. I think that what really stood out to me the most was the number of receivers that ran or that did the 3-cone and didn't run well, or just decided not to do it at all.
I have not seen any 3-cone numbers. So talk to me.
We had only two receivers go under 7 seconds in the 3-cone. Okay, only 2. To put that in comparison purposes, I looked it up. I did the research here. Let me pull it up here.
Yeah, please. And by the way, I was told that these guys have been practicing these 3-cones so much that the numbers might actually be a lot better this year.
So only 2 receivers under 7 seconds this year.
Who are they? Sky Moore is probably one of them. If he did it,
he was 7.14.
Really?
So yeah, that was surprising. I really did expect better for him. Kevin Austin from Notre Dame and Bo Melton from Rutgers.
Bo Melton had himself a nice little day yesterday.
He's a good player. He's a good player.
He was actually really good in the rain down in Mobile too. I thought he had a really good day on the bed weather day.
He was, and Bo Melton could have gone to Ohio State. He could have gone to a lot of schools out of high school. He chose to go to Rutgers. 2 this year, 4 in 2020, the last time we had a combine, 8 2019, 18 in 2018, and then in 2017 we had 23 receivers under 7 seconds in the 3-cone. So we've gone from 23 to 2 in the last 5 years, the number of wide receivers under 7 seconds in the 3-cone. So
why?
A big part of that is a lot of guys aren't running here. They're deciding, we'll wait till my pro day. I'll focus on the linear stuff, the 40 and the jumps and things like that. And then they'll wait for the pro day to do the change of direction, the short shuttle, that type of thing. So it's just fascinating how the trend we're headed towards with that. But it was also interesting to see the quarterbacks, get to see them on the field. That was great. I don't know that any of them really moved the needle based on what we thought going in. Malik Willis was fun for him to show off his arm.
And by the way, Dane, throwing on air, if this impacts your evaluation, you're not doing it right.
Right. Well, and I thought the same thing at the Senior Bowl. Like, I was surprised, but so many people talk about Malik Willis as being this winner. I mean, if you didn't know he had a strong arm or that he was athletic, then you didn't watch his tape at all.
He showed the same raw tools that he showed during the year, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm
He's
with
a good player. He is a good player. But more importantly than anything will be the interviews for him. I think the biggest question with him is, when will he be ready to play? When can he get on the field? I don't think he's going to be able to play as a rookie, but at some point, he's going to get out there, and that's what teams are trying to figure out. Just, when is he going to be able to grasp our offense and run it to a starter level ability?
And by the way, the noise you guys hear in the background, once again, our timing is impeccable. They've started to do the bench press, and this is offensive line bench press. We had some wide receiver and tight end bench press yesterday, which nobody cared about.
We had only one wide receiver bench, only one.
I know.
They didn't want to do it.
And I think Zion Johnson went to 32 earlier today, if I'm not mistaken,
awesome.
which is and he's a pretty lean guy too, so that's actually a pretty important number for him. All right, so last night, the tight ends, did anyone pull themselves away there? Because the Giants right now, they let Kyle Rudolph go. Evan Ingham's a free agent. They literally have nobody in that tight end room, Dane. Maybe they don't want to use a day 2 pick,
right?
But there could be a lot of guys left on the board at the start of that round 4 when they have their pick. Did anyone you think really separate themselves from that tight end group that you really liked last night?
Separate? No, I won't say that, but I do think a few guys helped themselves. A guy like Jelani Woods from Virginia, who former high school quarterback, goes to Oklahoma State, transfers to Virginia for his final year, led the ACC, all ACC tight ends and touchdowns. And then he comes here. Well, he went to the Shrine game, had a good week there. Comes here, runs was a 4.61 at 253 pounds, 6'7", so he was moving. And then also in the bench press, he had 24 reps.
The most of any tight end, right?
Which, when you factor in he's got 34.5-inch arms, it's even more impressive.
Mm-hmm.
Daniel Falalele from Minnesota, the almost 400-pounder, he had 24 reps. So, and his arms are just a little bit longer, but not a lot longer.
Yeah, 35 and an eighth, I think, he came in at. Yeah.
Less than an inch, longer than Jelani Woods. So, not only that, but I thought Woods on the field, the position-specific drills, caught the ball well. I thought he helped himself. He came into the week as my number 9 tight end, and I think he, maybe moved up a few spots, or it's close in that range. Trey McBride looked good. I feel about him the same way that I felt about him since the season. Just nothing there that wows you. Nothing about him that's dynamic. But he's a really talented pass catcher, very reliable. Contested catches don't bother him. I wish that there was more production in the red zone. But they're a run-first offense, and they really didn't use him there. So Trey McBride is still in that conversation to be the first tight end off the board, which I think tight end 1 is wide open. I really do. Greg Dulcich from UCLA, I thought he'd run better. 4.70, I thought he'd get in the high 4.5s just based off his speed. So that was a little surprising, but Greg Dulcich is still a really good player. He's in that mix to be one of the first tight ends off the board. And then a guy we didn't get the chance to see is Jeremy Ruckert, Long Island native who had a foot injury at the Senior Bowl and unfortunately wasn't able to work out. But he talked to him and he should be good to go at his pro day. And
then Cade Otton, the kid from Washington, a lot of people like too, right?
Top 5 tight end in this class, I think. The Washington coaching staff was fired because they didn't get him the ball enough. That basically, because they couldn't score any points on offense. Cade Otton was their best player, and they just couldn't get him the ball enough. I think he's one of the top 5 tight ends this year. It's just this foot injury that kept him out of the Senior Bowl, ended his season prematurely at Washington. He's a little bit of a combo guy because he can block, he can go out and catch passes. Because he's missed some time, maybe have a little bit of a discount sticker on him. If he were to last to the 4th round, I think that'd be a steal at that point.
How many tight ends on day 2?
Probably 4 or 5.
You think you'll get to 5, huh?
So Trey McBride will go, Greg Dulcich will go, I think Ruckert will go.
Watermeyer will probably go, right?
I don't know. I don't know about
really
him.
interesting.
I think those 3, and then I'd throw in Isaiah Likely.
He can move, man.
Certain type of tight end.
Now he didn't run yesterday either, right? Likely.
That's a good question.
I don't think he did. I don't remember seeing a number for him.
I don't think he did either. Yeah.
Which I was surprised by because you figured that's something that he'd be really.
Right,
that's where he'd shine.
Yeah, he did not run. I was surprised by that. And then Cade Otton. To me, those 5 guys have a chance. Now, if Otton were to follow the 4th, or I think that's possible. But Watermeyer, he's a good player. I would be surprised if he goes on day 2. To be perfectly honest with you. All
right, let's circle back around here. You mentioned 5 and 7. It's a rough year.
Yeah.
So, what is your thought process? Let's say Kyle Hamilton, who is a safety, but a legitimate blue chip prospect, right? He's probably one of the highest graded players in the draft. He's gone. Neal is gone. Ekwonu is gone. Both those guys, by the way, checked all their arm length boxes this morning with their 34-inch arms. And Hutchinson's off the board. Those 4 guys are gone. I'm putting you in the GM seat. I'm giving you the hat. What are you thinking at 5 or 7, assuming you're making phone calls and no one wants to trade up, because I'm sure that would have been your first response.
Yeah, right. That's going to be a lot of teams will be trying to do that.
Trying to move back, not up.
Right, exactly. Yes. This is going to be a big week for Kayvon Thibodeau. a big week for him to sell himself and prove to teams that, yeah, I do care about my brand, but I care even more about being a good football player. I care even more about being the best pass rusher I can be. That's going to be huge for him. There's a lot of teams are very skeptical on him as a top 10 guy because of just the way that he's carried himself in the past. And so this is a big week for him during interviews to prove that he belongs in that top 5 conversation. So I think he needs to be in the conversation there at 5. He's still a really good player, especially in this class. So he needs to be there. Travon Walker's been my guy. I know I'm higher on him than most people or pretty much anybody, but this guy is just scratching the surface of what he could be. 3 years from now, if you tell me Travon Walker is the best defensive player from this class, would not be surprised at all.
Okay, let me follow up on Travon, because I actually had Daniel Jeremiah on a couple of days ago,
yeah.
and he's a big Walker guy too. Yeah. And I asked him this because I went back and I watched him, and they almost use him like an interior rusher. He's never actually lined up outside the tackle.
Right.
So I guess my question is, what makes you so confident about his projection as an edge that we didn't actually see him do much at Georgia that would make you be comfortable picking him at 5 or 7?
Because when he did do it, he was awesome. You could throw on the Auburn tape and see a few times where he was able to get after the quarterback. I thought, they played him really tight on that line, and that allowed him to get better as a run defender.
Correct.
And he's a really, really good run defender. Really long player. You see the strength with how he plays at the point of attack.
275, man.
Yeah, and he plays like it. But I think when you let him go in space, throw on the Florida tape and see him drop in space and make plays. I mean, he tipped the ball, interception. I mean, they would drop him like a linebacker. So, I mean, it's really impressive to see him move out there. I think that once he gets to an opportunity where he can just pin his ears back and go, I think he can bring the juice. And so his workouts here will be important because
I've heard they're going to be really good.
They should be. And as long if he hits the numbers that he's capable of, that the traits say that he is on film, I think a lot more people getting on that bandwagon.
All right, so that's one of the 2.
Yeah.
You got one more, bro.
So, I think that is it too early for one of these offensive linemen?
That was going to be my question.
I think you look at a Charles Cross, you look at a Trevor Penning, you look at one of the interior guys. Is it too early for one of those guys? I don't. More so than most years, I don't know that it's really too early for anybody, in this class, because there's no consensus. There really is not. You're going to hear so many different opinions that if you feel great about a guy, take him.
And if you think he's a good player, even if it's not at a premium position, just get the good player.
Get the good player. Don't worry about who you should take or who, take the best player that's going to best impact your football team. So if the Giants decide that we really need to upgrade on the offensive line and that's where they feel the most comfortable going, then by all means. Charles Cross is you look at the movement patterns and the hand exchange, I was really blown away.
No, he might be the best pass protection tackle in the whole draft.
You could make that argument, sure. It's just he's coming from that air raid scheme, and that I've talking to scouts. Some will throw out the name Andre Dillard.
Andre Dillard, PTSD, absolutely, no question.
And part of Andre Dillard's issue is I don't think he loves football as much as you would like him to be, especially for a first-round pick. But he's Charles Cross is a good player, and so as long as you're not, you don't. He's not the most powerful guy, so as long as that's not a priority for you and your offensive lineman, he's strong enough, but he's not a straight power guy. So as long as you're okay with that, he's going to fit. Trevor Penning is interesting because guys that are 6'7", 330 and have the nasty demeanor that he does.
And he's going to test well.
He will, yes. They're just not walking down the street. They're not. It's hard to find those guys. And so I think Trevor Penning, I don't know that he goes top 10, but I would not be surprised at all because he has the traits. He has what you can't really coach. You just have to work on that technique, refine some areas, and he's going to be a good pro.
Are you a Penning guy or a Cross guy?
I do prefer Cross just because of, I've seen him do it against Alabama. Yep. I've seen him do it against some of these other teams. And even though he's not the most powerful guy, the movement patterns, the hand exchange, really, really impressive traits.
And his testing could be important, right, to see exactly how that movement translates to some of the testing.
And, he's a very young kid. You talk to him, and he's very young with what he knows. And so there's going to be a little bit of a learning curve going from that scheme to more of a pro-style scheme. I'm not even sure what pro-style means anymore, but it's different than air raid and what he was asked to do. So there will be a learning curve for him. you have to factor that in.
You're just listening to me. He doesn't seem as polished, just in general, as a like Neal and Aquanu. Like what you're getting. Like you listen to those guys, you look at them, and you're like, all right, you're kind of already ready to go here. Charles Cross, I feel like there is some development that still has to happen once he gets into your program.
No question, and that's why he's not a slam dunk top 10 pick or top 7 pick.
Do you think he should have went back?
No, I think he was fine coming out because we're talking about him as an early first-round pick here.
Right.
So,
I got you.
I could he have helped himself? Sure, but I don't think it would have necessarily jumped him up to number 1 or anything like that. So I thought he made the right decision. It makes sense.
Would one of the two? Let's say the Giants had to move on from James Bradbury to fix their cap issues. We know Wink Martindale needs corners that can play press, corners that are long, and corners that can run. Yeah. And Stingley and Sauce check those boxes. Are they worth that value at 5 or 7? Because whenever I think of quarterbacks, Dane, I think high variance picks, right?
Sure.
They're just the nature of the position is risky.
Yeah.
But those two guys have been asked to do in college what you're going to ask corners to do in the pros. They're not, these Big 12 quarters zone guys. So your thoughts on those two guys, and what have you heard about Stingley's stuff? I'm sure he hasn't really met with teams yet, but he's one of the guys that teams are going to have to figure out too.
And I'd throw Trent McDuffie in there as well. He's actually my number 1 corner.
Oh, is he really?
Yeah.
Wow.
He
smaller
is,
guy, but he can cover.
Yeah, he is the smartest DB I've talked to as a prospect. He is really, really sharp. He understands. I throw different scenarios at him, and he spit back. This is what he's very process oriented. So he understands by what the formation is giving him, what that means for him, how to communicate that to the rest of the not only the secondary but the linebackers. He is a very, very sharp individual, and I think that's going to make him someone that's going to make an instant impact because of that.
Did he play enough man for your liking to feel comfortable with him in that scheme?
They did a lot of press bail.
They did.
They do a lot of press bail, but he did do plenty of press man. They do a lot of quarters. They do a lot of zone. They did everything. I think that Jimmy Lake scheme. We've seen a lot of DBs come out of that system, and him and Kyler Gordon, who's probably also going to be a first-round pick, are the next two. But the two guys that you originally mentioned with Sauce Gardner and Stingley. Sauce is, the resume speaks for itself, obviously. Not giving up a touchdown at over 1,100 career pass coverage snaps. There's a few things down the field that you worry about, needs to clean up. Needs to stay under control down the field. I wish that we would have seen more targets his way, just so we could get a better, sense for some of these things. Teams did not throw at him, but that's obviously very, very telling. That team stayed away from his side of the field.
Full Darrell Revis treatment.
It really was, yeah. and that allowed Kobe Bryant to step up on the other side and be the Jim Thorpe Award winner this year. And then Stingley's a wild card. He really is. He's an enigma. It's funny if you flip the 2019 and 2021 seasons, lock it in. He's the number 1 pick. He's going to the Jacksonville Jaguars, but. What happened the last 2 years where he wasn't quite on that level? A lot was going on in that LSU program. It's a revolving door, a defensive coordinator for them. They lost a lot of guys. Injuries, obviously a big part of this. You talk to scouts and they're kind of, on the fence about him because he's not a alpha type of personality. It's just not who he is, and that's okay. Would you like your corner 1 to be an alpha? Sure. Do you need your corner 1 to be an alpha? It's not necessarily a requirement, but he needs to go to a place where, where there is a James Bradbury, where he could really, be of that big brother type and help him bring along and that type of thing. Go to Minnesota, Patrick Peterson, that type of deal where he's not asked to go into a veteran locker room and be the number 1 corner from the get-go. He needs to be, kind of brought along a little much slower than maybe some other guys.
Interesting. Well, next time we have you on, we'll dig a little bit deeper. Giants have a pick at the top of the second round, though.
Yeah.
And you mentioned it's a deep pass rusher draft. Is that a sweet spot for the pass rusher there? Pick like 37? Are you going to get somebody that's pretty darn good in that spot?
I think the beauty of this pass rush class is name a pick and it's going to be the sweet spot. I really believe that. I think you can. It's the only position this year where I think you can feel good about who you could get in the first round, second round, third round, fourth round, and into day 3. I really think
wow.
Obviously, fourth round you're not going to get a impact starter right away, but for normal fourth round picks, you're going to feel good about the pass rushers that could be there. Because not only the talent, but the just sheer volume of talent. So there will be only so many guys can go in each round. That'll push some guys down the board. I'm working on my top 100, and I've got 15, 16 pass rushers in there. I'm like, I've got too many guys. I need to go up to 20, 22, 25.
Wow.
There's just so many of these guys that belong that you make a case for in the top 100 picks that not all of them can go that high. So second round, Arnold Ebiketie from Penn State, I think that fits there. Third round, fourth round, there's a lot of different pass rushers and like we talked about at the top, different flavors that they offers a little bit differently. Pure speed, guys that can give you a little more power at the point of attack. So it's a really diverse group of pass rushers that I would feel good about. Now, should you stay away from pass rusher in the first round because of that? Not necessarily.
Right.
If the first round should be independent of everything. Go get the best player available especially in the top 10. Go get the best players available in the top 10. Don't worry about who could fall to you. Go get the best players, but if they don't go pass rusher early, there will be options later on the draft that they can feel good about adding to their mix of pass rusher.
Let's say the Giants decide at 5-7. None of these offensive linemen are worth the bang for the buck here.
Mm-hmm.
Once Giant fans put down their pitchforks and torches, and then they take a deep breath and relax, make them feel good about some of the guys they can find at tackle or guard or center in rounds 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah, I think I like the center class a lot. Tyler Linderbaum's obviously the top guy, but after that, Dylan Parham from Memphis is a good player.
He was good in Mobile. I liked him a lot.
I like Luke Fortner a lot out of Kentucky, a really good player as well. And then Cole Strange from Tennessee Chattanooga. I think those three guys are going to start games in the NFL. And they all have center guard versatility. And I think that probably not second round, but they're not going to last to the fourth round. So I think third round's maybe that sweet spot for those types of guys. At tackle, I do think there's a little bit of a drop-off after, that group. I don't think Bernard Raymond falls to you in the second round. I think he's going to be a first-round pick.
So you think 5 tackles in the first round?
Probably, especially the nature of the position.
No, it makes sense.
Everyone needs them.
Everyone needs them.
Yeah, I think 5 in the first round, and then do you feel good about any of those that next tier of tackles?
Falele, like that group, right?
And a guy like Nicholas Petit-Frere or Tyler Smith from Tulsa, who is a really talented guy. He's just the technique's a mess. He's a young player. You need to build him up, and so. What are you looking for? Are you looking for a guy that can plug in right away? Can you afford to be patient with them a little bit? When you get second, third, fourth round, that's what really factors in with a lot of these players, because a lot of them, a reason they're not going higher is because they're going to need some time in the slow cooker to marinate and before they're ready to see NFL action.
How about guards?
I like this guard class quite a bit. We'll see who falls to the second round. Does a Zion Johnson fall? I'd be surprised. I think Kenyon Green, Zion Johnson, they're going to go early in that first round. And then who's that next mix of guards? What's the order they come off the board? Everyone's got a little bit different, but I think that there's quite a few of them that you can get excited about. So
Sawyer, Ingram, like those types of guys.
Yeah, throw Darian Kennard in there.
Okay.
I think
Yep.
a couple SEC guys. I do like Sawyer a lot. He played left tackle at Georgia, but much better inside. He's got a guard body, guard skill set.
He did great against Hutchinson, and then
He did. Yeah, no, they gave him a lot of help.
They did, absolutely.
But I think he's a plug-and-play guard that can come in right away and play. And Kennard's interesting because he's a little sloppy at tackle, but move him inside that might be able to take care of some of that. Ed Ingram's a really talented player. So yeah, the SEC, cranking them out like they usually do.
And then finally, do you just always pick a wide receiver somewhere on day 2 now? I mean, there's like 12 of these guys every year. There's always going to be somebody good. It almost, to me now, and we just saw the report this morning that the Cowboys might release Amari Cooper.
Right.
You almost feel like unless you have a top 3 or 4 or 5 guy, should you even pay wide receivers anymore?
Yeah, and every year wide receiver seems to be a strength in the draft.
Every year,
right? And it's not going to stop, especially with the nature of the college game and how that's going to evolve even more so. Where those guys are the weapons, more so than running back, more so than other positions. So yeah, and then this is do you think the Giants maybe top 10, 5-7? Yeah, could be a position they look at with Garrett Wilson, Traylon Burks.
I don't think Drake London, because they have Kenny Golladay there already as a big guy.
Right.
So, but yeah, maybe.
Yeah, you never know. I mean, it's if you feel like he can be an immediate weapon for. I love Garrett Wilson. I really do. I think he
can do everything. That's what I like about him, man.
It.
He checks every box.
The only thing you wish he was a little bigger, but he plays bigger. So
he's good with the contested catches, man.
That's it. He's 5'11", 190, but he plays a lot bigger than he looks, and he will go get the football because body control, it's elite. So I'm with you. Garrett Wilson, to me, the top receiver this year. Burks didn't have the best workout last night. 4.55 in the 40, and that's. I think we need to be careful with some of these 40s at the, especially at wide receiver. And for context purposes, and I tweeted this, I took from 3 years ago, the combine, the top 10 wide receiver 40 times. 2 of them are studs, Terry McLaurin, DK Metcalf. 2 of them are solid depth guys, Darius Slayton, one of them. And then the other 6, 2 of them are out of the league. 4 of them have been massive disappointments. So, we just need to take these 40 times with a little bit of a grain of salt because, again, the tape is what matters. This is just kind of a fill-in-the-blank context type of exercise that, it helps, but it's not the be-all, end-all of where these guys should be drafted.
Dane, good stuff, brother.
Awesome, John.
Always good to see you. We'll have Dane on again before the draft, folks. Make sure you check it out and find your stuff on The Athletic, right? Anywhere else you want to send them?
No, just make sure you have your subscription. So when that draft guide's ready in early April, it hits your inbox. All you need is the subscription, and you get the draft guide as part of it for free. So make sure you check that out.
How's the beast marinating? Is it doing okay?
It's everything's a week later this year, so I feel like I'm, even pro days. So I feel like I need to catch up. But I feel like that every year. Somehow, some way, it'll get done, and this will not be the year where I do not get it done. I feel confident about that.
And it's always out first week of April.
That's the goal.
Good 4 weeks before the draft,
Yeah.
and guys, I'm telling you, it's my favorite guide. It's fantastic. Make sure you check it out. Dane Brugler from The Athletic, our guest on the Giants Huddle podcast, brought to you by AWS, Amazon Web Services, proud partner of the New York Giants. Stay tuned for more content from the Combine in Indianapolis all weekend long on Giants.com and our social media platforms.